morning, everyone. This is Sahar, and you're watching Rethink with Sahar. This is a platform where we rethink ideas, rethink thoughts, and try to look at everything in a new light. Today, we have among us Laurie Kaye. Welcome, Laurie Kaye. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Laurie is the author of Confessions of a Rock and Roll Name Dropper, My Life Leading Up to John Lennon's Last Interview. Yes, John Lennon. John Lennon's last interview, we have the person who conducted that interview, who sat with him and asked him those questions, which was meant to be his last interview. So, Laurie, what made you write this book? Uh, why, after so many years?
Well, I love writing for one thing.
Wow.
And I thought of writing in the first place at the tail end of my interview with John and Yoko when John signed a book for me. I brought my copy of Yoko Ono's Grapefruit and Yoko signed it. And John said, "Oh, please, can I sign it? Because I've written the introduction." So, of course, I
Wow.
said, "Yes, that'd be great." And he and Yoko both signed it so friendly and so sweetly. And I included this autograph in my book too. So everybody
Wow.
who gets my book now has an autograph from John and Yoko too. It's my autograph, but they still have it themselves. And the
Wow.
thing is when I thanked John and said, "Wow, it's so great that you autographed it for me," he said, "I love it when authors autograph their books for me." And I said, "Oh, John, if and when I ever write a book, I will definitely sign it and send it to you." And he pushed his
Wow.
glasses down his face and smiled at me and said, "Great, Laurie, I can't wait." And I was so excited. I
Wow.
thought, "Oh, I can't wait to write my book and do it." But of course, he was shot and killed mere hours later. So I just couldn't get myself to write the book for years and years, actually for 4 decades afterwards. And
That's
I
right.
just wish I could still sign and send him one. Of course, I can't because he's in heaven, but I
Yeah.
was able to sign and give a copy to his son, Sean, who hopefully read it and showed it to his mother, too.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And Laurie, that would have been the happiest day of your life, ending in a very sad, very uh, unpleasant is a small word, very, very tragic memory. So, how do you look at that day?
Well, I still refer to it as both the best and the worst day of my life because
Definitely.
it was just incredible to do the interview and to meet up and become friends with John and Yoko because we didn't just talk about music and life and raising their son and everything and their relationship. We also just became friends and we decided at the tail end of the interview that we would all get together in a couple weeks when John and Yoko were going to be in San Francisco to have dinner at Yoko's favorite Japanese restaurant in San Francisco. And I was so excited. I couldn't wait, not just because I love sashimi and sushi, but because I wanted to talk to John and Yoko about relationships because I'd only had really short, bad ones up to that time. And I wanted to talk to John about everything we had in common, not being raised by our mother and father, and we both
Mm-hmm.
spent a great amount of time and loved Bali, where I lived in, and that's described in my book.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
unfortunately, sadly, I never got to meet up with them again, and so our friendship ended at the tail end of the interview.
You happened to meet the assassin who assassinated him, and that guy, and you said he did not. He was asking you kinds of questions like, did you get an autograph and this and that. He was asking about him, and you were not very comfortable with it also. But you did not report it to anyone. How do you look at that thing?
Well, what happened was when I came out of the interview,
Mm-hmm.
and my RKO radio team came out behind me, and Yoko Ono and John Lennon were about to come out because the rest of my team, they were going to drop them off at the recording studio where they had a session booked, um,
Mm-hmm.
because they were on their way. The guys and my team were on their way to the airport to go to fly back to the West Coast.
Uh-huh.
But I was staying in New York for the night, so I wasn't going to be getting in the limo with them. So I walked out and I was a little separated from them. And all of a sudden, this weird, creepy guy started to come up to me and say, "Did you get his autograph? Did you talk to him? What'd he say?" And I didn't pay attention to him. I just went away. And one of the guys on our team was an executive from Warner Brothers Records, and he gave the guy a copy of Double Fantasy, the Lennon and Ono record that had just been released.
Mm-hmm.
When John and Yoko came out, he said to John, "Please autograph it for this guy so he'll stop bothering people." So John did. And
Wow.
the creepy guy stepped back. And then John and Yoko went with my team up to the limo, and I followed them, and we hugged goodbye and said, "Oh, we'll see you in a couple weeks in San Francisco." And I was so excited, and I waved goodbye, and they got in the car and they drove away. And I turned around to walk to my friend's office, who I was going to be having dinner with that night in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And that creepy guy followed me, and he kept stepping after me for blocks, and he wouldn't leave me alone. And he kept saying over and over, "Did you talk to him? Did you get his autograph? What'd he say? What'd he say? What'd he say?" And I was so upset. And I kept thinking, wow, I should really go back and report this guy to the team at the Dakota, because they'll get rid of him, the security team.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they'll call the cops and they'll get rid of him. But I didn't want to turn around and go back because I didn't want the guy to keep following me back. I kept thinking, I'll just pretend that I'm going to hit him and maybe he'll go away. But he didn't. And finally, I turned around and just told him to shut up and leave me alone. And finally, he stopped following me. And I kept continuing walking to my friend's office. And I was really thrilled that he left me alone. But unfortunately, hours later, when I found out that John had been shot, and then hours after that, found out for sure that John had been shot and killed, and that the guy who did it had confessed and was arrested, and they showed him on TV. And I looked at him and I went, "Oh my God, that's that creepy guy who followed me and kept."
Oh.
And I've felt guilty for the past nearly 45 years for not reporting him to the security team at the Dakota, or for calling the police, or for looking closer at him to see that he had a gun in the pocket of the coat he was wearing, which I
Wow.
didn't. So I still feel guilty about that. And another thing I feel guilty of about the interview is that
Mm-hmm.
that day that was chosen, December 8th, 1980, because John and Yoko were supposed to be on the West Coast and then in Hawaii back then. But Yoko had her astrologer call me and the other guys on my team and ask our birthdays. And then he figured out from our birthdays and other questions that he asked what would be a good day for the interview. And he came up with December 8th, 1980, which was the Monday that we did it, the Monday that John
Mm-hmm.
Lennon was shot and killed. So that's why I've felt guilty ever since.
Oh. Has it ever given you nightmares? Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night thinking of the same old scene that you went through, the situation that you went through when you, that creepy guy, the way you, you put it. So, has he ever come to your dreams or anything related with this incident? Your guilt has ever made you feel, I mean, mm, mm, yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing is that especially the first several months after John Lennon's assassination was when I would have horrible bad dreams and really feel
Oh,
guilt. Like I I felt like I couldn't work in radio anymore, even though I did. I just felt horrible and just embarrassed about what I'd done.
that's,
And the thing is, even now that it's going to be 45-year anniversary this December 8th, I still feel
Mm-hmm.
guilty. Sometimes I still have really bad dreams. And I feel terrible because that creepy guy whose name I never ever mentioned and never ever will, and didn't put his name in my book because I don't want to give him the
Mm-hmm.
public, he's still alive. They have him in prison, and I think they should have killed him,
Ah,
but they didn't. They
okay.
assassinate him.
Like, I'm just uh, looking at that day in your life. I I'm just surprised at the way fate can turn around all of a sudden. The happiest moments turn to be the worst ones. So, how do you look at your past? For example, one is your interaction with John Lennon. You had such a good time with him, and then more generally, how you perceived. You have mentioned your mother was not very happy at your birth. Your father left your mother when he found out that you were to be born. So, how do you look at your past and how you reconciliate it with the present as an unwanted child, as having problems with your mother, abused, and so on? It was not a happy life, I guess. Happy childhood, I would say.
Well, I should say that my interview with John and Yoko made me feel so great until, of course, I found out the bad news. And then it made me feel so horrible. But the way that I try and make myself feel so much better about it now is looking at the photo that was taken of me with John and Yoko,
Ah,
which is on
that's
my book, the black
beautiful.
and white version on the cover. But
Mm-hmm.
this is the color version. And it's a great photo. So whenever I feel guilty or bad or sad, I just look at the photo and I just want to kiss them both. It was because it was amazing. And of course, I showed it to my mother afterwards when she found out what happened. And she basically didn't care because, as I talk about in my book, I was raised by a dysfunctional family, which was my
That's
mother
right.
and her parents.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no father in my life at all. He walked out on her the minute he found out she was pregnant and with me, and that made her feel terrible because she didn't want to get pregnant in the first place. And it just I just feel horrible, and she made me feel horrible my whole life. She never supported me. She never cared about my doing well in school or going ahead to college or even my career or relationships or having fun. It just wasn't anything that ever concerned her. And after she got remarried to her second husband, he was a real jerk who treated me even worse than she did.
Oh,
And so I really didn't have much of a relationship with either of them, of course, and especially not with her until she separated with him several years before she died. And that's when I started taking care of her and took care of her until she passed away.
oh,
And of course, I was sad that she died because she did
of
give birth
course.
to me, but
Exactly.
still, we just didn't have a great relationship.
Hmm. And what would have been your life? Have you ever thought about it? Would have been your life if you were born and brought up in a normal in the sense that a happy family, the way we put it. So how would it have been? Have you ever thought about that?
Yes, because I know that if I had a normal family that was supportive, I probably never would have been nearly as successful or satisfied as I was with my life and career because I had to work so hard. I had to struggle so hard. And that's what made me successful and satisfied. And otherwise, I may not have. And who knows what I would have ended up doing. Maybe I never would have been a rock radio um, special
Right.
interviewer and and writer and on-air newscaster, and it's just I just have to think that everything that happened for a good reason.
That's right. That's how we look at things when we have to look at them positively. And yeah, and you talked about your father a little because you did not meet him, you just talked to him a little. And how was that experience? Did you feel like you have a father, or it was just any other person?
I never felt like I had a father because my mother
Ah,
was so pissed off about him leaving her that she destroyed any pictures that had been taken during their wedding. So I never even knew what he looked like. And
oh.
then all I knew was that she got a monthly check from him legally following their divorce from a bank. And for some reason, when I got into high school, I tried to contact him through the bank where he had the check sent from. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually did get a call from him just a couple minutes long. And it was like he
Mm-hmm.
couldn't wait to get me off the phone. And I
Uh-huh.
tried to mail him a letter afterwards to thank him for calling me and keep contacting me, hopefully. But I never, ever heard from him again. However,
Um,
what I did do eventually was meet my stepbrother, my half brother,
yeah.
who was the son
Mm-hmm.
from his first wife. My mother was his second. And then
Mm-hmm.
because he came from Michigan, where my father and mother were from, and visited me in Los Angeles. And that was kind of odd meeting him, but interesting. And then I never met, but I did get in contact with my two half sisters who were from my
Okay.
father's third wife. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really interesting too. They were interesting to be in touch with, and I've
Mm-hmm.
never met them personally, but that's as close as I've gotten to that side of the family.
So they did give you a sense of family after all.
Yeah, I feel like it's the only family I ever had because my
That's great.
stepfather did have two sons, but they were nasty and creepy and older than
Oh,
me and wanted to take everything away from me. And after their father died and then my mother died, they sued me to make sure that they got everything that I inherited. And so I don't even count them as family. Never did.
wow. That's so difficult to have such relations who do not care about you, but maybe what they can grab out of you, what they can get out of you. So that's a psychological torture, I think. And then uh, when you, all these decades, right after you are writing about this, all about not about your family, but about your mom, about John Lennon, and other things. So, have you been able to forgive them, or have you been able to forgive yourself?
Well, I've tried to look at the good part of my mother,
Mm-hmm.
and that is that she was really good looking, had an incredible body. She wanted to be a major model. That's why she came to LA from
Mm-hmm.
Michigan. That's why she married the guy she married, who was my father. It wasn't because she was necessarily in love with him. She just wanted to come out here and be a model. But of course, she ended up
Uh,
getting pregnant, so that was something she was unable to do. So I always did admire that of my mother, that she looked great. And even till she got really old, when she died in her 80s, she still looked incredible. And
wow.
hopefully, as I get older and older, I will get
You look
better looking too.
incredible. You do look very beautiful.
Thank you. That's very sweet of you.
Thank you. You're welcome. And so, back to the thing. Were you able to, for example, you still say you still get those thoughts of guilt and those feelings of guilt. So have you been able to uh what is it said, forgive yourself for what happened that day?
I have tried, but I still have plenty of guilt on my shoulders and in my head. And that's why I wrote my book, because I thought this is going to make me feel less guilty. This is going to make me feel better because people will read all about me and all about that day and hopefully understand. And they have. And the really cool thing, by the way, about people reading my book is they say, well, normally when we read a book, we only read a few pages at a time and then put it down and go back the next day. But with your
That's
book,
right.
we want to read the whole thing at once. So that makes
Exactly.
me feel
That's
great.
what, yeah, that's happened to me too. I
Awesome.
read your book. Well, it's an interesting book, and it's a very well written book, very lucid, very much in the flow, and it's great book. Thank you for
Thank
giving us this book.
Thank you. Well, I've gotten a lot of great reviews, not only on
Yes.
websites like Amazon and Goodreads and everything, but from publications online and print and everything. And if people will go to my website, my book's website,
Hmm.
confessions of a
Hmm.
rock and roll name dropper.com, they will have access to all of my podcasts, including our last one, and
Hmm.
radio and TV show interviews that I did and appearances and
Hmm.
so much other stuff. And they can find out where to get my book, everywhere from online to so many bookstores, not just across the country, but around the world. And so hopefully people will still keep reading and really love it and
Of
let me
course.
know how much they
Yes.
do and leave me a great review.
Exactly. And Laurie, uh, how do you look at your life from now onwards after the book has been released? How have you been spending your days after the book was released? And how do you plan to spend next years of your life?
Well, I've been feeling really good, even though I've been working so hard promoting and publicizing my book. But I feel
Mm,
great that people are finding out about me and not just about my life and sex and drugs and rock and roll that happened in it, but also about what made me who I am and how I got
yes.
successful. And maybe that will inspire people to do what I did. For example, going to college, but leaving college to take an interview, as I did, excuse me, not interview, internship at a radio station,
Internship.
which led to an amazing job. So I got to quit school and I didn't have to go to classes anymore. I started making money on the radio as the news editor at KFRC in San Francisco, which led to my being an on air newscaster as well as writing what turned out to be the longest Beatles special ever created for radio in the United States, which was RKO Presents the Beatles. And it was
Um,
so popular when it aired in this country that it was automatically internationally taken
wow.
advantage of. And that was so great because that's what we did then was expand it to 17 hours. And I still co-produced it. And we changed the name
Mm-hmm.
to the original title that I'd come up with and wanted to use, which was The Beatles from Liverpool to Legend. And that's still so extremely popular. And years later,
Wow.
when I interviewed George Martin, Beatles producer, one of the first things he said to me was, I loved your Beatles special. It's the best one I've ever heard. I've listened to it twice in England. And the Beatles from Liverpool to Legend, it's the best Beatles special ever. So that makes me feel good. And I still like to think of that and listen to it myself. So I'm happy about that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
And yeah, and is there anything else you would like to share with the youngsters? Any message
Well,
for them?
um, I'd like to let them know how to grow up in a family
Mm-hmm.
that's not the best family, if that's what's happening to them. Because as I
That's right.
found out from a lot of readers, they were also raised in dysfunctional families or by parents that didn't support them. And that's what I explain in my book is my mother did not care about me being successful in school. And then when I got my career started, She never listened to my radio specials on the air, on the radio. She never cared to. She said she didn't care anything about rock and roll or the Beatles but what I really knew was she didn't care anything about listening to anything that I created. And she never went,
Uh,
and once she was in the same city as I was when I was on the air doing a newscast, and she never listened to that. She just didn't want to. So hopefully when people read my book, if they have any kind of a similar upbringing, they'll understand and they'll feel more secure afterwards and better about it.
that's a great message, Laurie. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And we wish you a very good luck for your book and a very happy life ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great interview.
Thank you. Bye bye.